यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि विठ्ठल विठ्ठल 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 पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि जय राम श्री राम जय जय राम 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 रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधा माधव राधे श्याम राधा माधव राधे श्याम सीताराम 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 सीता वल्लभ सीताराम सीता वल्लभ सीताराम राधा मुकुंद राधे श्याम राधा मुकुंद राधे श्याम राधा गोविंद राधे श्याम राधा गोविंद राधे श्याम राधा मुकुंद राधे श्याम राधा मुकुंद राधे श्याम राधा गोविंद राधे श्याम राधा गोविंद राधे श्याम रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी रामकृष्ण हरि मुकुंद मुरारी पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि पांडुरंगा पांडुरंगा रामकृष्ण हरि हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला 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 आनंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद आनंद नंद यदु नंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद आनंद नंद यदु नंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद आनंद नंद यदु नंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद आनंद नंद यदु नंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला हे नंद नंद गोपाला आनंद नंद गोपाला. We'll recite Guru Stotra. Please have a copy if you don't have one. Please come and take a copy. अखंड मंडलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वर गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. स्थावरं जङ्गमं व्याप्तं यत्किञ्चित् सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. चिन्मयं व्यापि यत् सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. सर्वश्रुतिशिरोरत्न विराजित पदाम्बुजः वेदान्ताम्बुजसूर्योय तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. चैतन्य शाश्वत शान्तो व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनाद कलातीत तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. ज्ञानशक्ति समारूढ तत्त्वमाला विभूषित Vyapanam Sarasampala Guroh Padodakam Samyak Tasmai Shri Gurave Naguroradhikam Tattvam Naguroradhikam Tapa Tattva Jnanat Param Nasti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Madnath Sri Jagannath Madguru Shri Jagat Guru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gururadi Ranadischa Guru Paramadaivatam Guru Paradaram Nasti Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Now we will recite the verses we have covered, which are verses 1 to 19 of Bhaja Govindam. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukrinch karne. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukrinch karne. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Mudha jahi dhanagama trishna Kuru sadbuddhim manasi vitrishna Yallabhase nija karmopatam Vittam tena vinodaya chittam. Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. Nari stanabhar nahi desham Drishtva maga moha vesham. Etan mansava sadivikaram Manasi chintaya varam varam. Jana Sangati Rekha Bhavati Bhavanava Tarane Nauka Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Jatilo Mundi Lunchita Kesha Kashayambara Bhavukrita Vesha Pashyannapi Jana Pashyati Mudho Hridara Nimittam Bhavukrita Vesha Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Angam Galitam Paritam Mundam Dasharavihinam Jatam Tundam Vidho Yati Gritva Dandam Tarapilamunchat Yasha Pindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Agre Vanni Prishte Bhanu Ratrau Chubukasa Marpita Janu Karatala Bhikshas Tarutala Vasa Tarapina Munchat Yasha Pasha Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Kurute Ganga Sagar Gamanam Vrata Paripalanam Athava Danam Jnana Vihina Sarvamatena Muktim na bhajati Janmashatena Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Suramandirataru Moolanivasa Shaya Bhutalam Ajinam Vasa Sarva Parigraha Bhogatyaga Kasya Sukham Naka Roti Viraga Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Yogarato va Bhogarato va Sangarato va Sangavihina Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam Nandati 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 Eva Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. So we stopped at verse 19 last Saturday. Yogaratova, Bhogaratova, Sangaratova, Sangavihina, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Nandati 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 Eva. A very beautiful verse of Bhaja Govindam. Basically saying that the essence of the religious life, the essence of spirituality is Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam. The mind coming to discover the fullness of the divine within, Brahman, and finding its peace and its contentment there. This is exactly the Bhagavad Gita's teaching, Atmani eva Atmani Tushta. So whether one is practicing yoga or in the world, yogaratova, bhogaratova, with others, sangaratova, sangavihina, or not in the company of others, or in the company of others, yasya brahmani ramate chittam, the one whose mind dwells fixed on this limitless Brahman, he or she, Nandati, 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 who is always at peace, always rejoices. So today we will begin with verse 21, traditionally attributed to the disciple Anant Rambachan. And he mentions here, he chooses in his contribution to the poem to speak about the three important steps which might help our religious growth. So this is the verse of Anant Giri, verse 20 of Bhaja Govindam. Bhagavad Gita Kinchita Dhita Bhagavad Gita Kinchita Dhita Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita Sakrida Piye Namo Rari Samarcha Sakrida Piye Namo Rari Samarcha Kriyate Tasyaya Menana Charcha Kriyate Tasyaya Menana Charcha Bhagavad Gita Kinchita Dhita Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita Sakrida Piye Namo Rari Samarcha Kriyate Tasyaya Menana Charcha Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, the verse 40, Sri Krishna gives a word of encouragement to Arjuna and to all of us. Neha bhikramana soshti pratyavayuna vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So there, as a word of encouragement to Arjuna, he said that on the religious journey, in the practice of the religious life, no effort is ever lost. Neha abhikramana soshti pratyavayuna vidyate. There's never any loss. There's never any loss, Arjuna. And then he adds in the second verse, swalpam apyasya dharmasya. Even a little bit, swalpam apyasya, even a little practice, little bit of searching. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Helps us to overcome great fear. Mahato bhayat. Mahato bhayat is mrityu, the fear of death. So it was a word of encouragement to Arjuna, because when you are a student, you're a disciple, you're never quite sure where you are in the journey, whether your effort is worthwhile or bearing fruit. You may become discouraged. So Sri Krishna here assured Arjuna that every small step is worthwhile. It helps, it produces some phala, some good result. And I think Anant Giri in this verse picks up a similar idea in his contribution to the text. And so he says, Bhagavad Gita, so I quoted the Gita here. Bhagavad Gita, kinchita dhita, even a little study. Not everyone can study the whole text and spend a long time, but even a little study, he says, kinchita dhita, Bhagavad Gita, kinchita dhita, a little study of the Bhagavad Gita. And Gita means, little study, but careful study. Careful study even of a little of the Bhagavad Gita. We have the very beautiful verse about the importance of the Gita, which is part of the Gita Dhyana. Sarvo Upanishado Gavo. That all of the Upanishads are like cows. Dogdha Gopal Nandana. And Krishna is the milkman. Partha Vatsa Arjuna is the calf. Sudhir Bhogta, but all of us are the drinkers of this milk, even though immediately it is given to Arjuna, but all can share. Dugdham Gita Amritam Mata. The milk, of course, is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita, traditionally we look upon the Gita as a wonderful summary in one conversation of the essence of the Upanishads. All of the Upanishads are cows. Gita is the milk, and Krishna extracts this. So here, therefore, Anand Giri says, turns to the Gita. He says, little study of even a few verses of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita Dhita, Ganga Jala Lava Kanika Pita. To sip. It's an interesting example he gives. Taking a sip of even one drop of the waters of the Ganga, of the Ganges. And I just wondered, the mythology of the Ganga is also very illuminating. Some of you might know of it. In the traditional story, Ganga was first a heavenly river, Akash Ganga, before it came to the earth, flowing high above the reach of ordinary human beings. But then it was brought down to earth by the efforts of Bhagirath, the king Bhagirath, because the waters were needed on earth. And then this is also part of the traditional story of Shiva. But the problem is that if it came down on earth, it would fall with such force that it would destroy everything. So someone had to come forth to take the impact of the Ganga. So even, as I said last week, when poison was created, Shiva came and took the poison, and he's Nilkant. So he comes also and takes the impact of the Ganga. Ganga Jatha. He's Ganga Jatha, the one from whose hair the river flows. But in our tradition, the Ganga represents the flow of knowledge, the perennial flow of wisdom. Jnana Ganga is the flow of wisdom. So wisdom has to be dynamic. It has to adapt itself. So even though its source is in the Himalayas, which is fixed and steady, but this is dynamic. It adapts itself. Wisdom adapts itself to context, to circumstances, to situations. It has to be told in new ways to meet students where they are. So sipping the waters of the Ganga is taking a sip of wisdom, even a few drops. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita Dhita, Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita, even a few drops of this perennial wisdom that flows from the Himalayas. Sakridapiyena Murari Samacha. And Sakridapiyena Murari Samacha. Even once worshipping God, with fullness of heart. Here he uses the word, for God he uses the word Murari, which means in Sanskrit, Murasya Ari. Mura is in Hindu mythology is a demon of ignorance. Represents ignorance. So Murari is the one who destroys ignorance. Sri Krishna is called Murari because he's the enemy of Mura, the demon of ignorance. So Murari is Murasya Ari is called Murari. So worshipping God as the destroyer of ignorance. Then he says, Kriyate tasya yamena na charcha. Without such person, Yama doesn't argue. There is no argument. There is no charcha with Yama, with Mrityu, with death. Because, the idea here is that we argue with death because we are afraid of Mrityu. So such a person overcomes the fear of death, as we saw in Bhagavad Gita. Maha, the great fear. is overcome even by small steps. This is the idea. Even by small steps. Don't give up. Anand Giri is saying, don't give up. Take the small steps. And these small steps in the religious life are always fruitful steps. Nothing is ever lost. There's sometimes when we might not be able to devote ourselves as fully as we will, but even a little bit will produce great power, great fruit. But in the next verse, perhaps a disciple responding says, but you know, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's difficult to overcome samsara. He confesses his Nityananda. He says it's difficult. And one always needs God's grace. The next verse, which is verse 21, he offers us a prayer. His contribution is a prayer. Yes, please.
Just on the same word, if I understand Bhagavad Gita a little bit, my understanding is it's selfless service of others. I got it from. So is it just defining part of Brahman or it is Brahman? I mean, you say Brahman is limitless. So how do I understand that selfless service of others is Brahman too? Because I cannot define Brahman. So is my knowledge correct?
Knowledge is correct, and we will see some later on. An interesting series of verses will come. We'll see if we get. I don't know how far we'll get today. Perhaps we will not. But in the Bhaja Govindam later on, and in the Bhagavad Gita, the idea of selfless service is an expression of a certain understanding of the nature of Brahman. You're right in that premise. So, what does Bhagavad Gita teach about Brahman? Basically, in so many parts of the text, Sri Krishna says in different words, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. One who sees me in everyone, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra. He sees everyone existing in me. So he comes back to teach about the fundamental nature of Brahman, and Bhaja Govindam will make that point also, is learning to see God, or if you wish to use the word Atman, learning to see oneself in others. And the fruit of that understanding, the fruit of that seeing is compassion, karuna. It's daya, caring for others. What you call nishkam seva. Nishkam, all seva should be nishkam, or nishkam karma. The fruit of that understanding is nishkam. You know, you have to try it. Even in, as Gita says, a little bit. And what I'm saying when I say try it, you know, try to, as best as possible, either, and depends on how you wish to formulate your understanding, either seeing God in the other or seeing yourself in the other. And if immediately, when you learn to see yourself in another, without thinking about it, your heart opens in compassion. The fruit is immediately there. The fruit is immediately karuna. The more you disconnect from the other, the less is the flowering of karuna or compassion. Whatever your profession, you know, whether it's teaching or medicine or you're a nutritionist and you're seeing your patient, but if you connect, you know, by learning, you know, I am in that person. I see something that is also there in myself. Immediately you become a more caring teacher, a more caring professional, whatever your field. I think that's how we connect, you know, jnana with seva, jnana with nishkam karma. And the teacher will make this point to his students a little bit later in the text also. So in verse 21, Nityananda gives us a very beautiful prayer to God. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, iha samsare bahudustare, iha samsare bahudustare, कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे, कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे, भज गोविंदम भज गोविंदम, गोविंदम भज मूढ़मते, भज गोविंदम भज गोविंदम, गोविंदम भज मूढ़मते. This is a very famous verse of Bhaja Govindam. Many people know this verse. So he also, interestingly, he also prays. It's a verse of prayer for God's compassion, kripa. Kripaya pare pahi murare. But he uses, interestingly, he also uses the word for God, which the earlier disciple had used, which is Murari, the destroyer of Mura, or ignorance. So he also chooses, of all the many names of God, it's interesting that he also chooses to call God here Murari, destroyer of Murari. So he says, Kripaya pahi Murari, in your compassion, save me. He places himself, throws himself at the feet of God. Why? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. So he refers to the samsara, the cycle of birth and death and rebirth. So again and again, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Again, finding oneself in the mother's womb. It's very difficult. Iha samsari, bahudustari. It is very difficult to be free, to gain moksha, liberation. Therefore he says, he prays, help me. He prays for the grace of God. And one needs God's grace. One needs Bhagwan's kripa. And the Hindu tradition, our great teachers have said that this is a prayer, this prayer for freedom, this prayer that makes one, in Sanskrit we speak of it as a mumukshu. This is the prayer of someone who has come to realize, I need liberation, I need to be free, I am not free, I need to be free, and turns to God, please help me. The prayer of the mumukshu is always answered. It's a prayer that is always answered. Sometimes it is said that because of the particular way, because of we are a tradition, the Hindu tradition is a tradition in which our worldview is informed and shaped in a decisive way by the teaching on karma samsara. This is very distinct about us. These twin teachings, karma, samsara. So samsara is a cycle of birth and death and rebirth. It's also called punarjanma. And that is related to karma. Karma is the moral law that sort of governs this process. The process is not, haphazard. There's a moral law that governs it. So we speak of different kinds of karma. So very important is what we speak of as prarabdha karma. So prarabdha karma in Sanskrit is the karma that is already expressing itself in this life. So every life there are certain actions that are bearing fruit. And that prarabdha is called prarabdha, which that has already started to take effect in consistency with past choices and past actions. And while there are some different views, but generally it is said that one can't, it's not easy to alter the course of prarabdha. It's like an arrow that is released from a bow. That even after, if you change your mind, it's already traveling its momentum. It will go even though I might wish I did not release it, but it is released. It's out of my hands now. It will take its course. Although there are others who speak of prayaschitta karma, actions that might neutralize the effects of karma. So there are some different views there. What is taught, however, is that if I take an action to neutralize the effect of a past action that I might have performed, even if it does not neutralize it because karma doesn't allow the neutralization, that action will still produce a good result for me. Perhaps later in this life or in a future life, because every action must produce an outcome. Every action must produce an outcome. So there's never loss of effect, even though sometimes we might not be able to change reality. But even when we try to change it, those actions will produce good and positive results for us. But coming back to the importance of this prayer, even if prarabdha, certain kinds of karma it might not be possible to change, yet the prayer for wisdom can always be answered. So one's circumstances might not change, but one can always find the wisdom, the blessing of God to deal with the situation, to respond to it. That's God's grace is always there, with strengthening us or giving us the insight or giving us the wisdom to deal with current situations that we might not be able to alter or to change. So this disciple asks Murari, the destroyer of ignorance, for wisdom. Please help me. Help me, overcome samsara. By your grace, help me to achieve freedom or moksha. That prayer, it is told, it's always answered. It never goes unanswered. You can see also, in Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna makes a similar point at the end of chapter 9. Apiche sudurachara bhajante mam ananyamha. We're foolishness. Sudurachara. Durachara means one who does evil. Sudurachara makes it one who is most extreme evildoer. Apiche sudurachara bhajante mam ananyamha. Comes to me in this sincere, prayerful manner. Sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. Because the person has rightly resolved. I see immediately, he says, Sadhureva, I see the potential. I see the goodness of this person. Shipram bhavati dharmatma. And that desire, that prayer, like this disciple, that prayer, Shipram bhavati dharmatma, that prayer, if sustained, will transform this person into dharmatma. So sudurachara becomes dharmatma through this desire, the strengthening of this desire to be good. Shipram bhavati dharmatma, shashvat shanti nigacchati, and will produce the fruit of peace. Please know, it says, Kaunteya Pratijani, this is my commitment. Name bhakta pranashyati. One who comes to me in this way is never lost. Is never destroyed. Name bhakta pranashyati. So this is very similar to Sri Krishna's promise in Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, this disciple gives us this prayer for God's grace. Therefore, this is why we always, we pray and we sing, Hey Prabhu Ananda Data, Jnana Amko Dijiye. Please bless me with wisdom. Shigra Sadhed Durgunoko Dura Hamase Kijiye. This is the prayer that's always answered from God. It never goes unfulfilled. In the next verse 22, another disciple of Shankar gives us again more positive. We've seen verses varying from the one people following the religious life but never still caught in the grip of greed and desire for power and wealth. But again, we have a more positive vision here in verse 22. Ratya karpata virachita kantha, Ratya karpata virachita kantha, Punya punya vivarjita pantha, Punya punya vivarjita pantha, Yogi yogani yojita chitto, Yogi yogani yojita chitto, Ramate balon mattava deva, Ramate balon mattava deva, Ratya karpata virachita kantha, Punya punya vivarjita pantha, Yogi yogani yojita chitto, Ramate balon mattava deva, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate. So we have an interesting, very beautiful portrait here given in verse 22. Ratya Charpata Virachita Kantha. So he describes this yogi who is Ratya Charpata Virachita Kantha. He describes him wearing a particular kind of shawl. A shawl, and this is similar to what we make today, but in a different way. What do you call it? Patch quilt. Patch quilt. A quilt made out of little squares of cloth is called patch quilt. But this yogi is wearing a patch quilt, but one that he has stitched together from pieces of cloth he's collected here and there. It's called a godani. He makes so he's wearing this shawl. This is his clothing. It's a very interesting way of describing what he wears. And before I say more about the verse, I thought this is really insightful. In the sense that the fruit of such yoga practice is a wise use of the world's resources. So he makes his clothing by using things that probably people discard and find some value in it and makes his clothing to wear. Because his needs are not great. He's overcome greed, therefore his needs are minimal. And certainly one of the fruits of yoga practice, or one of the fruits of religious practice is that, you know, our needs don't grow greater. In fact, our needs are reduced because we have needs, but we no longer have greed. And therefore, we are happier with less. We're more contented with less because we have found a deeper source of our fulfillment. And all that is in what this guy is wearing. Ratyachar Pata Virachita Kanta. Yeah, it has an important message for us in so many different ways because we are very extravagant sometimes with the resources of our world, which leads us, you know, to plunder natural resources, to live very wasteful lives. We throw away, we are a disposable society. But here traditionally the practitioners of yoga were wise in conserving resources, in using those resources well. You know, I sometimes think back, you know, and then many of you will remember, you know, perhaps growing up in circumstances where you didn't throw things as way as we do today. I always remember because I grew up, you know, in an extended family with my grandparents. And I always remember my grandfather. He had a long piece of wire that he kept in his room. And on that wire, every time he got a letter or he got some kind of paper and he read, he would keep it. He would also pierce it and keep it. He had this long string of paper. And then when he wanted to write something, he would reuse, you know, bits of that paper. Just one example of, you know, using things wisely, not disposing. You know, you go to a college campus today, look at the recycling bins, just paper. Students use paper, and you know, you can print, and if it doesn't print well, you throw it and you put more into the printer. There's a lot of waste that takes place. The traditional practitioners of yoga. So you know, it's important that modern practitioners of yoga realize that yoga is much more. It's also a way of how we relate to the world and how we use the resources of the world. Gandhi was a great example of that. You know, one of the great things that he taught us by his way of life is the wise use of what you have, the wise use of resources. He was an extraordinary in his use of whatever he received, whatever he got. So this yogi, Ratya Charpata Virajita Kantha, who makes his clothing, you know, from pieces of cloth, Ratya, he's picked up, he's collected. Virajita Kantha, Punya Vivarjita Pantha. Very beautiful, you know, describes yogi, Punya. Punya Vivarjita Pantha. He walks a path, it's an interesting line. He walks a path that is beyond Punya and Papa. Punya, Apunya. This is a very traditional way in which our scriptures talk about the spiritually mature person. You know, you can understand the verse this line, but if you think, you know, when you're rearing your own children, you know, you always feel that you need to instruct them. What is good, what is not good. Punya, apunya, papa. You know, you become, all the time you're trying to become sort of moral teacher for them. But you're also hoping that someday, and many of us say, you know what is right and wrong now. You know, I can no longer, you know, be the overseer of your moral life or your ethical life. You're grown up. You've made your own choices. So in a similar way, our scripture speaks of the yogi or the Jivan Mukta, the liberated person in this language, Punya, Apunya, someone who doesn't need to be instructed by others about what is good and what is not good, because he or she has become a source of moral values himself. Because of his spiritual wisdom, we look to such people to tell us, what is virtuous and what is not virtuous. They are not virtuous because they are being obedient to some command. That's when the maturity comes about. When you are good, because it is good to be good. You're not good because you're worried, if I am not good, I'll be punished. You have chosen to be good because it is better to be good. You've seen the fruit of goodness. Like you were asking the earlier question about Nishkaram Karma. You're not doing this because you've been ordered by someone to do it. You're doing it because it expresses who you are. The fruit of your own wisdom, the fruit of your own understanding. And sometimes such people have to teach us new ways of being virtuous. Because sometimes traditionally we sometimes think that, if you look at the history of, say, the United States, for example, and many other countries, most people, when slavery was the norm, did not think anything was wrong about it. Never thought twice about it. This is the way things are. You have slaves, you have estates, you have slaves. Until a new voice comes. A new voice comes and says, no, something is wrong with this. It is wrong to enslave people. It is wrong to deprive them of their freedom. Challenges it. Because the conventional morality said it was okay. So you need an unconventional voice now, speaking from a deep place of truth and insight and wisdom to challenge it. And that's how society changes. There was such new voices. There was the voice of a Gandhi, the voice of a Martin Luther King here, the voice of a Mandela in South Africa, challenging conventional ways of understanding virtue. So, Punya Vivarjita Pantha, Yogi Yoga Niyojita Chitta. This is my life. We say, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chitta. Yogi Yoga Niyojita Chitta. His mind is united. The mind is united. The mind is there where the infinite is. There the mind. The mind has unity with this infinite. Ramate, he uses the word again, Ramate. So, Yoga Ratova, Bhoga Ratova, Sangha Ratova, Sangha Vihina, Yasya Brahmani Ramate. Ramate. Balaha, Balu Mattavade. It gives us a very beautiful metaphor to end this verse. Ramate plays. This person plays sports. Ramate. In what way? Balavat. Unmatavat. Like a child. Or, interesting, like a mad person. Unmatavat. The yogi is like a child. Sometimes like a mad person. Unmatavat. It's an interesting metaphor. How is a person of such great wisdom like a child? Balunat, like a child, becomes childlike. How do you think? How is it? What is the point of this comparing the yogi to the child? These two extremes. Interesting. And you could think of a child. I always think, one of the reasons why we love children, we love to be with a child. The older you get, the more you want to be with a child. There are many reasons. One is, as you said just now, because we can give different reasons. And I think one of the important reasons is that children are not hypocritical. When you're with a child and a child smiles with you, it's a genuine smile. You don't doubt it. you're not suspicious of a child's smile. It has integrity. There is no, in other words, the child is not smiling outwardly and inwardly, frowning with you. You know that. And you long for that. You long to interact with people, or interact with beings who are not hypocritical, who are sincere. What you see is what you get with the child. And if the child is not happy, the child will show that also. When I say, I'm unhappy, I'm going to pretend to grandmother that I'm happy. It doesn't have that kind of sophistication. When the child is unhappy, the child will cry. When the child is happy, the child will smile. There is a genuineness. When the child hugs you, you know there's something really valuable. Now, similarly, I think the person described in this verse, the yogi or the jivan mukta, there's a sincerity of being, freedom from hypocrisy. It is something childlike. That's kind of innocence. And Prasanna, I heard him say just now, non-judgmental also. That the child is non-judgmental about it, and I think that's also true. And that's connected with what I said about when the child smiles, it's a genuine smile. And I think also, and we can see many ways in which spirituality connects with the child. Children also live very fully in the present. They're not always worried about things of the past or anxiety about the future. They're also fully, when they're in the present moment, there's a sort of, yes, there's a certain vitality in the present moment, which is also like the spiritual people. Don't worry too much about the future, anxious about the future, or looking to the past, but living fully in this moment, the present moment, making use of it. And so you can think of many connections. Balavat, why is the liberated person compared to the child by the disciple? Balavat or unmattavat, he says also like a mad person. There are many ways also we can connect, and again coming to there's a very beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure you will remember it, it's in the second chapter. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyami. Where again Krishna describes the liberated person, the Jnana. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam, that which is night. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam, that which is night for all beings. Tasyam Jagarti Samyami. In that this person is awake. It is not that this person wakes when everybody is asleep. It's not this person awake in the night when everyone is asleep. It's that the Brahman, the infinite, to which we are, when we are in ignorance, we are not awake. This person is always awake there. That which is night for others, this is the place of his life. This is the place of his or her awakening. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagarti Samyam. To that, this one is awake. Yasyam Jagarti Bhutani Sanisha Pashyatu. And that to which others are awake, this one is asleep. Which means, greed and everything else that follows. Where we are alive, in acquisitiveness and possessiveness and multiplying wants, there is no interest. It's a radical contrast. So we see such a person and we think, this guy is odd. The spiritual person might seem, from all perspectives, to be odd, to be different, because he or she has found a source of contentment and joy that we don't understand, we don't see, we can't appreciate. So from our perspective, seems like a unmattavat, like an insane person or mad person, because we're always ready to condemn the one who's different, the one who's not like us in this regard. So we got a very interesting series of metaphors used by the disciple in this verse, and in the next verse we will continue with. We'll stop here. The disciple comes back and reminds us of the importance of inquiry, and then at the last few verses, Shankar himself comes back and concludes Bhaja Govindam with his contribution. So I'm very happy today to see Sandra with us. I'm sure all of you know her. Welcome, Sandra. But I know also that this is the sixth death anniversary for Govind. I'm sure many of you remember Govind, Sandra's husband. He was always here with us and attending satsang. 6 years ago, Govind Bhatta said he passed away. His son was a student of mine also at St. Olaf College. So we remember him, Sandra, today. I know he would have been here if he was with us. So I would like to offer, as we conclude, a prayer, Moha Mudgar mantra in honor of Govind Bhatta, whose death anniversary is this weekend. Maybe you can chant with me. We chanted this last weekend. Prasanna?
I just wanted to make one comment for all of us to think about. You started out Bhaja Govindam with Moha Mudgar, destroy revolution.
Yes.
Verse 17, it says, Kurate Ganga Sagara Gamanam.
Yes.
You may bathe in Ganges river, you may go on pilgrimage, you can do anything, but nothing will come out of it unless you have the understanding. Then he comes back here and says, just first think about Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita Jita. Even a little study of Bhagavad Gita, even a little sipping of Ganges water will not scare you from death. You will not be afraid to confront Lord Yama. To me that means, if I've conquered the fear of death, it means I have some understanding of who I am.
Yes, I understand.
So you have to think carefully, are they telling two different messages?
Good
Or
somehow they meet.
Yeah. Or are they the same message, but said in a slightly different way? Shankaracharya is very, very careful in using his words. And so, my suggestion is, verse number 17 and verse number 20, we should ponder over and really think what that means for us. That's the only comment. The other comment is the prayer, Punarapi Jaranam, Punarapi Maranam, very beautiful prayer. It's like Anyata Sharanam Nasti, Tvameva Sharanam Mama. Or Sarva Dharman Parijajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So conveys the same meaning. Essentially having faith in God will allow you to navigate through the perils of life. You said you can navigate prarabdha karma easily if you have that faith in God. That's very important.
Yes. Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you very much. Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam if I remember now, I think there was a little break in the schedule.
I've sent it.
Yeah, everyone got
Incidentally, we won't meet next Saturday, and we will not meet the following Saturday. We are off for 2 weeks. Then we'll come back 2 weeks from today.